Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I finally decided to film the VR coffee house decks, and it's a VR 2K from Amidst the Grey. I will link her original video in the description box below. Guys, in the last couple of days I have watched so many of these videos on coffee house decks, and every time I felt like drinking a coffee, which by the way it's here, that at the end I had to add a new category, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm Italian, and I can tell you this: Italians do drink a lot of coffee. It is part of our culture, but I think that at this time it has become part of our DNA. And the fact is that it is a social event, having a coffee together. As a matter of fact, if you want to go out with someone, you just literally say, shall we have a coffee? And that means, you know, going out and having a coffee or any other beverage, and you know, just spend a couple of hours together talking about life and everything. We have lots and lots of piazzas, you know, squares in the city centers where you can definitely sit outside and you just enjoy the views and the breeze, and you have your coffee. And sometimes we take our time with the coffee, sometimes we just gulp it down. So coffee is part of who I am. I've always been drinking it. I don't remember when I started. I must have been very young, and I really enjoyed watching all the videos with this tag, so I thought I'd come up with my own choices. Let's have a look. So the first category is Espresso Shot. Now, espresso is a strong sharpshooter and wakes me up. This is the tarot that came to mind. Now, it's a relatively new acquisition in my collection. It's called the Godfather Tarot. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. It's very interesting. It's a tarot deck that I thought, you know, as you can imagine, it's by the way, the book is really good too. But you know, I thought at the beginning, okay, well, let's have a look. I wasn't too sure about it because I thought that it was going to be one of the usual fandom deck, you know, with a lot of pippish minors. It's actually really good. It's not 100% fully illustrated. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it actually is really good to use. The Hermit. It's a nice deck. I love the fact that it's all black, but the suits have a different color, consistent throughout all the suit. As you can imagine, I'm not sure how they dealt with the copyright, because these are actual scenes from The Godfather. Well, not this one, but let's say many of them. It is a sharpshooter. It does wake me up, like the espresso that I just had with a bit of milk, which I don't know. I have to tell you a big disclaimer. Yes, I am Italian, and yes, coffee is part of our culture. But we tend to have less types of coffees in Italy. I don't know if it makes sense. Probably because for us, coffee is an affair of purity. You know what I mean? It has to be the one type. So we enjoy, I admit, we enjoy espresso with a bit of milk. We call it macchiato. And you can have macchiato caldo, macchiato freddo. So either hot or cold. Macchiato means it's a small spot of milk in it. But we just don't have as many as I've seen around, especially in the US. And I really enjoy trying the different types of coffee when I'm in the US. I definitely do that. Perhaps because I haven't been looking for it in Italy, perhaps we do have all these different kinds of coffees, but I haven't found it. If you know any different place, let me know. You know, this is this very sharpshooter, and there's no pun intended, but you know, when you talk about the Godfather Tarot, shooting can also mean something else. But in any case, so this is my choice for the Espresso Shot, and it is the Godfather Tarot. And here we have the drip coffee. The drip coffee is simple, accessible, and gets the job done. And I chose the Spirit Speak because this deck to me is exactly what this coffee is, and it just gets it done. But it's also very simple, and indeed it's very accessible. Well, first of all, because of the size, as you can see, it's bridge size. It's very minimalist in style. It's a black and white. On top of that, it does have symbols, and the symbols are the reason why it gets it done, because you can go straight to the point. It's actually a beautiful deck. I don't mind when a deck is black and white. I don't mind when a deck is minimalist. I don't mind when a deck is smaller size than a tarot standard size. As a matter of fact, I actually prefer it because I have small hands. Therefore, you know, I do appreciate it when they make it somewhat easier for me to handle the deck. Well, by the way, I absolutely adore the backs. Look at that. Look at these roses. They're just fantastic. So this tarot is exactly what it is. It's just really straight. It gets the job done whenever I need to do just a, you know, like a 3 cards reading, but also because of its size, I use it in the Celtic Cross readings, because, you know, I don't need to use the whole table for the spread, and I like that. It's very practical, and I do appreciate that in the deck. Why not? So this deck is the Spirit Speak Tarot, and it's my choice for the drip coffee. And let's have a look at the pour over coffee. You have to take your time with it, but it's really worth it. I think that this tarot is perfect for this category. It's the Siddhartha Tarot. It's also a recent acquisition, and it's been published by Lo Scarabeo. I think that it might have been released in Italy for quite some time, but obviously here in Australia it's rather difficult to find. Now this deck, I have a bit of a slow burning love affair with this deck. Well, first of all, I do enjoy the artwork. I do enjoy the combination of colors, and I really like the fact that the booklet, for example, let me just show you quickly. It is, you know, with the Scarabeo, it's a bit of a hit and miss, in the sense that sometimes you can have a booklet which is really, really basic, and it only tells you the couple of sentences you need to know about the card, and that's it. And some other cases, it's actually incredibly interesting, and it's got some very specific information related to the specific cards. Well, this is it. It's very specific. So show, let's say, whenever there's a card, it actually tells you the meaning of the illustration on that particular card, and I really appreciate that, because it's like reading a book, you know. And also it tells you a couple of information. For example, I really like, well, this year is the year of the star for me, so in this case Matcha clap drum, and she is the one that created a practice of chud, which is going to be my study for this year. So what I mean is this, basically, it takes its time, but it's really worth it. You really have to dive deep into it, but it's really worth it at the end, because you acquire so much information on not just the deck, the meaning of the author by choosing these particular characters to represent these particular cards, but also the religion of Buddhism in general, which is always very interesting. I'm always very open to know, you confront myself with other cultures, because I think that that's the only way to broaden our horizons. And not to mention the fact that it is actually quite well done, I believe. Once you read the meanings of these characters in the booklet and the associations with the with the card. For example, this is Magic Lap Drum, and you know, she's always standing on a drum. She's also holding a very specific type of Tibetan drum. It's just it's not just beautiful because this is actually beautiful, but it also gives you that sense of magic that is behind these characters. And you know, it's always a good idea, I think, to learn something new. So this is the Siddhartha Tarot, published by Los Carabel, and it is my choice for the drip coffee. Next, we've got the Caffè Latte, which is always well received, and it's a people pleaser. Caffè Latte is basically your first exposure to coffee. If you're a kid in Italy, at least that's the way I've done it. Okay, I don't speak for the entire population of Italy, but all of my friends have initiated their own kids to coffee via Caffè Latte. Caffè Latte basically is the same amount of coffee and milk. It is the way in which you want to approach coffee because it is slightly, let's say, weaker or less strong, because you cannot really use the word weak when associated to coffee, I believe. So it's slightly less strong than straight coffee. It is a people pleaser because, well, in my case, I always put some sugar in it, which is not always the case with my coffees. Like espresso, I don't put sugar, nor, I don't know, any other kind of sweetener in it, because I believe that it's strong, it's powerful, you know, it wakes you up, and it has to be non-indulgent. But I always put in sugar in Caffè Latte because it's the kind of way you want to really appreciate it, and it feels like a warm hug, but it's not super hot, because when you pour milk on it, it's not like the Espresso Shot, which is, you know, like boiling temperature. Therefore, you can really sip it. It's just very, very nice. It tastes really good, I think. And this is what this deck does to me. It's the Old-Fashioned Thorn, by the way, and it's just, it gives you that kind of, it's a warm welcoming, it's a warm hug from this deck whenever I use it, even though it is still telling you the truth, but in such a way that it doesn't hurt you, which is always appreciated. And it's also because the tactile experience of it, the fact that this card stock is really one of my favorites, so obviously it's something that I appreciate as well, and it goes you know, to make the experiences even better. So this is the Old-Fashioned Thorn, and it's my choice for the Caffè Latte. And the gentle turn had to be the cappuccino. I mean, yes, it's frothy and comforting, exactly like a cappuccino. Cappuccino is probably the Italian way to have a caffè latte, but in a bar. So not many Italians, or at least, again, back when I used to live in Italy, so that is a long time ago, and things, I'm sure, have changed. But my personal experience was that my parents only had the normal caffettiera. Caffettiera is the, let's say, the aluminum coffee machine, the one that you fill with powder, coffee powder, and then you put it directly on top of the flame on the cooking stove. And you know, the water warms up, boils at the bottom of the caffettiera, and then it goes up, and by going up, it percolates through the coffee powder, and then it comes out of a spout, and you drink it like that. Now, technically, that is what we call, let's say, coffee. So if you go visit someone, that's a coffee. However, because in the last probably 15, 20 years, I don't know, there's been more and more coffee machines that have been sold in the market, also in Italy. I do believe that things may have changed. However, when you have caffè latte at home and you go out, you don't necessarily ask for caffè latte in Italy, you actually ask for a cappuccino. it's not much different, but the way we drink it, for example, we put a spruce of cocoa on top of the foam that it is made with the milk. And you know, it's the indulgent thing to do when you go out, when you actually have time to enjoy it, and you don't necessarily drink you're not necessarily drinking your coffee because you have to go to work or because you have to go to university, for example. It's the kind of thing you enjoy, so it is definitely comforting. And I think that the Gentle Tarot is perfect for this category because it is that kind of deck. It's the kind of deck that is really gentle, it's kind, it doesn't slap you in the face, which doesn't necessarily mean that it lies to you. It still tells you what you need to know, but it does it in such a way that it's still something you can face, you can work on. Look at these cards. And it's just one of those decks. I mean, you don't need, or at least I personally think that you don't need that many decks like that in your collection. Once you have 2 or 3, in my case, decks that are considered a hug deck, comforting deck, a gentle deck, then it's enough. But you know, I mean, there's no 101, there's no standard way to do things, there's no manual to have a collection. You do what feels right for you, and this is what feels right to me. So this is the Gentle Tarot, and this is my choice for the cappuccino. And this had to be the mocha. The mocha is a coffee which is rich, indulgent, and a little bit extra. And when I read the part about the little bit extra, I thought immediately, yeah, there's got to be the Infinity edition of the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, because of this shiny glossy mirror-like effect on the box and on the backs of the cards, and on the gilding as well, as you can see. Sometimes when I use it, I just see myself and I go, hello. And obviously also on the sides, on the edges. Now this deck is the Infinity edition of the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. There are a few differences between the original edition and this edition in particular. Just a couple of cards are different. The subjects, I mean the artwork in the cards. What is consistently different is the color of the hair. I don't know why, but in this case, in this edition, it's actually very fluo. It's kind of fluo colors, which is very much appreciated. I really like it. Now, I believe that this deck, because of these reasons, has a different kind of feel from the original edition. I do consider both of them has to be different decks, and I do use them in different ways. This devil card is more, it's actually from the very first original edition, not the second edition. The second edition has got all the messages around it. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's just, it says you can't do it, you're not enough, it's all your fault, give up. And so this one, it looks like the creator has gone back to the first original edition for the devil. Most of the other cards, I would say 99% of the cards are the same. The colors are slightly different. In some cards they're also the same. The font is slightly different. I have to say I do prefer the first or the original font because it is easier for me to read, but that's totally personal, you know, that's just my opinion on it. This star card is fantastic. I just really enjoy this deck. It's really beautiful, but it is a bit extra. And when I think about it, you know, I reach for it when I want that kind of a bit extra, when I want to be looking at the mirror card and go, woo. So it's such a really nice deck. And this is the Infinity edition of the Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, and it is my choice for the Mocha. The Somnia Tarot is my choice for the Con Panna. Now, Con Panna, I know that everyone pronounces it in a different way. It's an Italian expression, and it means with whipped cream on top, obviously. Now, Con Panna is a coffee that puts you in your place, but with a hint of sweetness. And this is the perfect choice, at least for me, for this category, because the Somnia Tarot is that kind of a powerful reader that still gives you, because of the images, because of the mastery of the photographer, who's also the creator, Nicolas Bruno, it gives you the kind of sweetness, even though it's actually, you know, punching you, basically. I've shown this deck before in my channel, and I've shared this story because I don't mind. So basically, I suffer from quite bad claustrophobia, and at the beginning when I saw this deck, I was very hesitant to buy because I was really worried that the fact that almost all of the characters in the photos are wearing shrouds, are covered in shrouds. Many of them have a rope around their neck, and this, I was kind of worried, almost entirely sure, that it would have provoked some kind of a trigger for my claustrophobia. And if you add to that the fact that in some cases the figures are also drenched in water, it was even worse, because as you can imagine, the shroud drenched in water would have been really sticking to the, as you see in this figure, for example, to the person under it. But once I got it, I actually learned to appreciate it. I actually fell in love with it. And one thing that I really appreciate is the use of light in these photos. And as you can see here, let me see if I can get it closer. See, there's a bit of light coming in from outside the frame. And because of the angle and the amount of brightness in the photo, I believe that some of these photos have been taken during what's referred to as the golden hour. Also in this case, for example, here, the golden hour is the time of day in which it is just before twilight. So basically, I do appreciate this. I have been working as a photographer for a while. I have been co-producing a TV show on photography here in Australia, and I have been, for years, I have known how to appreciate all these tiny little details that make this deck kind of sweet, in the sense that whenever you can tell these things, it feels like an accomplishment for myself as well. And you know, it delivers the message whenever I read with it, for sure. But it also makes me smile because I recognize the mastery, as I said, the skills of the photographer behind these fantastic cards. So this is the Somnia Tarot, and it is my choice for the Con Panna. This next category is the Matcha Latte, which is a bit unconventional and a bit of an acquired taste. I actually really like Matcha Latte, but I do understand the meaning behind this definition, and I thought that the Star Power would have been really good to represent it. Now, the Star Power by Zigzag Girl is a deck that I really appreciate. But I understand completely that it is a bit of an acquired taste. So not everyone might like it. Not even the ones that actually like it may have liked it since the beginning. You know, it could have been a bit of an experience that had to build up to it, to a relationship with it. I personally think it's very quirky. I always like quirky decks. I like the combination of colors, for example. I really like the artwork as well. The same author has created another two tarot deck. One is called the Mars Power and another one is called the Moon Power. And I heard that they also recently released a holographic version of, I think, the Mars Power, but I could be wrong. Now, I love the fact that there's so much details in each and every card. There's a lot of, you know, contrasting colors. I mean, in here, for example, the 3 of Wands, you can definitely see the meaning of the card, so setting your wheels into motion. But you can also see the fact that there is the character in the card is looking towards an interesting future where you have rainbows and, you know, whales swimming in the sky, as you do. So it's just that kind of deck that not everyone may feel comfortable in using, not everyone might like it. But when you do, you're part of the connoisseur, like, you know, the ones that drink matcha latte, and you feel even better because of that. And I really enjoy using it. It is one of the decks that I take with me whenever I travel. So my friends know this deck as well, because I always use this one whenever I read for them. It's and it's also really good, you know, it's the kind of cardstock that it's very durable, which is always appreciated, and that's one of the reasons also why I take it with me when I travel, because when I travel, you know, sometimes I just sleep in a tent, so you have to have something that is durable. So this is the Star Power Tarot, and it is my choice for the Matcha Latte. And I had to go with the Poet Tarot when it comes to the hot chocolate. Now, the hot chocolate reminds you of a younger version of yourself. This choice is mostly because when I was younger, I was really into, let's say, the genre horror. And so I was religiously reading all of Edgar Allan Poe's works and many others. And I am very grateful for this tarot deck because it's really well done. It's an excellent production, although I have to say that the choice of the red gilding on the edges, sorry, but it's always, red gilding just doesn't work. There's no two ways around that. You always end up, even though you're extremely careful, you can even be using, you know, gloves when you shuffle. You can even not be shuffling, just, you know, you can do something like this to shuffle instead of proper shuffling, and you'll still end up with chipping on the gilding, because I don't know why, it's just this particular gilding in red is just really bad. However, this deck is incredibly powerful. It's minimalist in style. As you can see, it's also black and white. What I really appreciate is that there's always a quote from Poe's works in the on the cards. When I was younger, I had this really strong passion for, look at this Justice card. So I had this really strong passion for everything related to horror. I was reading comic books on horror. I was watching horror movies. I was reading, you know, horror books. And I just could not stop admiring how beautiful and how strong and how powerful the stories were. And it's just a completely different world. Like, although I did have a few friends that share this passion of mine, so we were kind of sharing information about new books to read, new comic books that have come out, or new movies that we can watch together. So I'll always be fond of these memories. I have to say I don't do that anymore. I mean, I do watch horror movies. I still like the genre, but let's say back then I was really, really into it. And, you know, I was spending all these summers just reading Edgar Allan Poe's work, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And this is why I chose this deck to represent this category, because it definitely reminds me of a younger version of myself, because this is what I was doing when I was younger. So this is the Poet Tarot, and it is my choice for the hot chocolate. And I've chosen the Panna Tarot 1 and 2 for the Italian soda, which is fun, not overly serious, and it had to be these decks. I mean, I've shown these decks many times before in my channel. These are the decks that you use when you know, you want to have a good time, when you just want to enjoy the cards. There's a bit of nudity in the cards, as you can tell, but these are such irreverent decks. These decks are incredibly funny. They don't take themselves too seriously. It's just a matter of looking at life and looking at all the worries and looking at all the problems and the stuff that wakes you up at 3 a.m. in the morning and just saying, you know what, I am zen. So I really thought that this deck was the obligatory choice for this category, which is the Italian soda, fun, and definitely not overly serious. So this is the Badass Tarot #1 and #2. And as I said at the beginning, I actually, so I said that I added a new category, but then looking at my notes, I actually replaced one. So the next category would have been the herbal tea, and I'm just calling it the chamomile. And the reason why is that some herbal teas have tonic, depending on which herbs you use. But in my case, after drinking so much coffee, because I've been watching so many videos with this tag, I definitely needed something to unwind, and so I've called it chamomile. So this is the Tarot of the Strange Sprouts. It's a French deck. The original title is the Tarot aux ramures étranges, and ramures sometimes can be translated as antlers, but I've actually checked with the creator, and what they meant with ramure is actually sprouts. So it's like branches coming out of the protagonist, of the character's head. And it's just something that is blossoming, whether it's blossoming because of a reaction to the situation in the card or because of personal growth. I think this deck is very powerful, but at the same time, it's a power that takes its time. It's actually a deck that gets to know you, and it speaks to you, as in directly to you. It's because of the presence of so much nature. It's actually the concept of this deck is to get lost in the forest and to become part of the forest yourself. That's why the sprouts are coming out of you, and it's, you know, in some cases they're very tiny, in some cases they're very big, in some cases they're just medium size or whatever. As you can see here, for example, it corresponds, I think, but I've been looking at the guidebook and it doesn't necessarily say that, at least not yet, because I haven't read all of it yet, but it seems to me like it corresponds to the level of integration of, you know, of assimilation that you have reached within the forest. And I really like this concept. And other than that, you know, it reminds me of a chamomile because it is helping me unwind, because it's kind. I don't know, it takes everything down a notch or two. It's an excellent cardstock, it's the one that I like. Also, you know, one thing that I noticed is that these corners have been rounded with the larger kind of a corner around her, so it just makes it more kind, more gentle, kind of softer look to it. The color palette is not excessively vibrant, even though some cards are really beautiful, I'm not saying that, but it's just the kind of colors that helps you unwind, if you know what I mean. It is a very kind of deck, and I really like for it. So this is what I changed the category from herbal tea to chamomile, because after drinking so much coffee I definitely needed to unwind, and it's the Tarot of the Strange Sprouts. The next category is the Cortado. The Cortado is a Spanish word that means cut, and this coffee is balanced and objective, and I had to go with Julie Wiley's Savvy Soul Tarot, which has become one of my favorite. This tarot deck is it's just the synonym with balance, I believe, because of the combination of really good cardstock and excellent scenery imagery, very straight symbolism, and you know, a very considered color palette. It's just one of those decks that ticks all the boxes, at least for me. But I have received a lot of inquiries about this deck, and I have to say that last week I actually reached out to Julie saying that there's a lot of people that actually want your deck, and she had, as per last week, she still had 25 in stock. I don't know what happened after that, because I told all of my friends so there might not be 25 in stock anymore. This deck is perfect for this category. It's just the kind of deck that it doesn't, so you can use it for strong kind of readings because it doesn't pull punches, but on the other hand, it's not just shadow, it's also light. So I really appreciate that, and it does that in such a way that it still retains all the symbolism of the traditional RWS system, but it incorporates that into our modern times. Therefore, it's very appealing to all of us. It's appealing to the parts of us that want to have a modern deck, but it's also appealing to those of us who rely on the good old tradition. I enjoy using this deck all the time. I use it practically every day. It lives on my desk. I am so happy that I backed this Kickstarter. You know, sometimes I back some Kickstarter. You don't have that many images. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the campaign is going to be successful. You also don't know whether the creator is going to ship them on time or not. There's going to be delays. You know, if you ever backed a Kickstarter deck, I am sure that you've had some good experiences and some bad experiences. This was 100% good from beginning to end. I am so stoked to have this deck in my collection. It's the Espresso Tarot, and it was my choice for the Cortado. And this is my last choice for this very fun tag. It's the Chai Latte, because it's warm, cozy, and nurturing. I immediately thought of the Ember and Aura Tarot by Jamie Richardson. Now, it depends on which edition, but I have both of them. I have the original edition, which is this one, and I also have the Awakening edition. This deck is exactly this. It is warm, yes, it's cozy, and absolutely nurturing. I think that it's one of the decks in my collection that, together with the Gentle Tarot and maybe the Maraloon Tarot, is a hug deck. Everything that belongs to it, everything that refers to it, from the color palette, which is, you know, pastel color, but in this case the original edition has got some kind of an earthy tone to the colors. The cardstock, now the physical tactile experience, and also the noise of these two cards, the swishing noise of the cards, is just, it contributes to this really cozy experience that you feel when you're using this deck. The artwork is just really beautiful. I enjoy looking at the cards. I enjoy using it. I enjoy the fact that I have tone. The Awakening edition has got more a cooler kind of tone, if that makes sense, rather than this earthy one. I love the fact that, yes, it is kind of pippish, but I don't mind. You still get a lot from the cards. It's beautiful, it's powerful, it's cozy, it's nurturing, it's a hug deck. I'm really glad I have it. So this was the Ember and Aura Tarot. This is the original edition by Jamie Richardson, and it was my choice for the Chai Latte. Now, this was the last category, so thank you so much if you've been with me till the end of this video. It was lots and lots of fun, and if you liked it, please consider subscribing to my channel. More to come. Have a great day.